Hi everyone, it's Desiree, and for today's project I am going to be working with a stamp set by Memory Box Open Studio, and I'm also going to be working with the Arteza watercolor cards and envelopes that they have added to their new items. I want to say within the last month. I don't want to say too recently. But here is the stamp set. Now this is a huge stamp set. The die is as well. So this is called Birthday Rose Corner. Now these watercolor cards by Arteza do have the envelope with them, and they measure 5 by 6.9 inches. So it's very similar to a 5 by 7 card. They are side folding, or depending upon if you make it a landscape, then it would be a top folding card like that. And of course, usually I like top folding cards. So this one is going to be a landscape. So let's get started. I love the font too when it comes to this stamp set because it's typewriter font. I'm just a huge fan of that. It's either that typewriter or that beautiful script, and it's got to be just right. And it's me. Okay, so you can see I have the watercolor card folded in half, and you can see just how big that stamp set is. So you can see why I absolutely fell in love with the stamp set. I'm going to use my VersaFine black ink for this. Now what's going to be odd is I'm actually going to use my Nuvo dark chocolate detail embossing powder. I want this to have not a black outline, but rather a dark chocolate. So I chose to use my VersaFine black because if I didn't get a solid line from embossing powders, I struggle with embossing powders. Unless I do multiple layers, I always have breaks. I always have, it doesn't melt right. And you know, again, I'm good with it. But I do, by using the black ink, it hides it. That's why I also use white pigment ink when I'm using my white embossing powder as well, for the most part. So just a few tricks that I use just to fill in those backgrounds to make it look like a solid image for the sentiment. So here's my image. I did want to emboss so that I could have that barrier. I love playing with my watercolors, but I'm not comfortable yet to not have that barrier there for me unless I'm doing a real messy watercolor, which is a technique. So I wanted this to be somewhat messy, but not. These are technical terms. Again, disclaimer, not a watercolorist. I am showing all of the coloring here. So yeah, the watercolors that I'm using is the Arteza 36 pan. I am really a fan of this. I really do like their pan watercolors. Their tubes, I have mixed feelings. I mean, they're nice if you want to get started, but if you're looking for a better quality, these are definitely it. So I pulled those out, and I wanted, even though this is called Birthday Rose Corner, I wanted the colors to be fall. So muted is what I like to refer to as that. So I just make sure that I have dark tones, and honestly, the color that I will use for the majority of my colors, especially with the greens and when I want my purples, is my indigo. I will absolutely use that indigo color to bring them down. For my red, I'll use a brown just to bring that down. I'll use you know, either the raw umber or sienna color to bring down my yellow that you'll see. So you can see I'm putting down one solid color first. It's almost like working with my colored pencils, if you've seen those before, or even how I work with Copics. So for this, what I wanted to do is just put down a solid color and then come in, while it's still just a little bit damp, a darker shade of that color, or just a darker shade, period. This is how I'm just getting used to my colors. I love to just let my colors flow. I think let them do the work. That's what they do. That's what watercolors will do. I'm okay with the solid lines. For the most part, it depends upon what I'm working with, but I do like those solid lines. I love the break in those colors. I think it just adds texture. It adds dimension to the image. Again, this is how I use watercolors. You know, I have fun with it. I want to see how they can go, how far I can get them. And again, I keep working with them. I keep practicing with them. You know, I don't look as, you know, practicing, you know, doesn't make us best. It continues us to learn. It allows for that. Because there's always one thing that you will learn every single day. We learn something. At least I do. You may not realize it, but we do. There is something that we will come together on. So here you can see I'm adding a lot of water because I want to make sure that the main color that I'm putting down first is watered down. It's pale. Now remember, when watercolors dry, they dry back. You don't have this true vibrancy right off the base. Now you can see I've added just a little bit of brown to this same color, and I'm just putting it towards the base so that, again, it can move. I did the same thing with the yellow rose. And I want to do the same thing here. You can tell when you don't have water in that other section because it will stop. So I'm just adding a little bit of water, and I'm using the Arteza water brush. Now you can get these individually. This does come with the pan set. So here's where I'm mixing up my purple and realizing, duh, put the indigo back in there. So that's how I got my, you know, the deep purple that I was looking for. Again, just putting down that light color. Even though I have the embossed barrier, I still want to make sure that I'm taking my time to make sure that I don't bump over. You know, maybe I cough or I sneeze or, you know, I do something. You know, just making sure. But I really did have fun with this. What really I enjoyed with this was mixing colors. I struggle with the concept of mixing colors. Now, I understand primaries, red, yellow, blue. There's a warm side, there's a cool side. You mix your yellow and blue. You know, they're your primary colors. When you mix your yellow and blue, you get a green. That's your secondary color. And then when you mix those two, you get a tertiary. That I have an understanding of, and how that kind of works somewhat. I make it sound really good. But I have to be honest with you. If I don't have that chart, which I need to make a new one, if I don't have that chart in front of me, I have a color chart. I always make color palettes for my watercolors, and whether they're brushes or pens or inks or anything like that. Colored pencils, I don't. I just go with it. So I do have those. But I think what I really need to make for each of the watercolors, you know, for this one, is to make that color wheel so that it can show me, okay, this is where I want to go. This is what I want to add, so that I can continually be reminded. So that's the area where, you know, just being able to mix those colors to get that color that's in my head onto that paper would absolutely be awesome. So that's usually the challenge that I have when it comes to this process. I get it, it seems simple, but for some reason I just have that little bit of block. But, you know, again, we overcome. Absolutely. It's not a big deal. But just having fun at this point. And again, I did not tape down my card because I went directly onto the watercolor card. And even though it looks like they're very watered down, I'm not putting a lot down. So this did not warp that much. I made sure when I heat set the image with the embossing powder, I made sure my heat tool ran for about a minute before I even put that to the paper. Now what I did was, after I was done the painting, the watercoloring, I used the die cut with just some scrap cardstock. I wanted to use that to protect my image because I want to do some splatters. I really I didn't care about the leaves or anything else. I didn't want to have any splatters on the two main roses. Now you can see up at the top, some of that blue did cross over. I'm okay with that. You know what? I'm good. I think it looks cool that it went over that way, but I didn't want these splatters to bleed across. I wanted them to stay somewhat solid, and those did, that were in the coral rose. So I just added some blue and some of the gold that I had there. I stamped my image. I'm going to turn this into a fall birthday card, and I just simply stamped happy birthday onto some brown cardstock. Again, because my embossed areas were brown, they're not black. The embossing powder actually covers up the black. But in case there were skips, like I always have, using that dark color, it kind of blends in. I will always come in when I do my splatters with a paper towel just to make sure that it is dry so that my hand does not make it go all over the place. Just saying. I want my sentiment to be off to the right there so that this image that we colored is prominent. This piece took me about 45 minutes from start to finish. Okay? I always like to let people know that. Sometimes people want to know, but that's because I kept on playing and having a lot of fun with it. I think this is a great image. It does show some of where the shadows can go. And it is just a beautiful, huge image. And the sentiments are great throughout this stamp set. They range from happy birthday, even though it is a birthday, to celebration, to just making sure someone appreciates the day, enjoy it, look for the special moments. So it's got some great versatility with this. Yes, you are seeing it live. I actually used my T-ruler to make sure that sentiment was straight. You know, when you put that much work into something, I will make sure a sentiment is straight. Other times I don't care. I pick and choose. I do hope you enjoyed today's project with Memory Box and their Open Studio stamp sets. They have some beautiful images there. So I encourage you to check it out. And as always, all the products that I used will be listed down below in the video description. Please, any questions you may have, make sure they're down below as well, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. If you haven't yet, I'd love for you to subscribe, see more of my videos, and see what's upcoming. We are getting ready for the Christmas of 25 days of 2020. It should be fun. But continue to stay safe and healthy. But most of all, just do this just a little bit every day. And without you knowing it, you are. Always. Be creative. Till next time, guys. Take care.